and we can have our reasons why we think that is or not. I won't pontificate on that. But the fact of the matter is, most of the people that are working now have to work full-time, including that week of deer season. And to our truck drivers, to our plant workers, the only thing that makes us competitive to China now is working a lot and doing just in time. So I've heard tremendous thank yous from the working people that are now able to do Saturdays and Sundays without having to burn vacation days, or maybe not even getting that off at all. So I just wanted to make a comment on that so the general public could hear my thought process. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Foradora. Former Commissioner Mitrick has a question.
Thank you. I have a question. The poll showed that 60% of Americans strongly in favor, moderately in favor, 30% are strongly opposed. Obviously, two-thirds are, really for, one-third are not. Yes, polls that you develop, are those good numbers? I mean, so going forward, the commissioners are going to have to decide, are these good numbers or bad numbers? Is two-thirds really something we should hang our hat on and say, wow, two-thirds are 100 are really happy, or do we say one-third are not happy? So with polls, and I realize this may be the only poll like this that you've done, do you have any comparisons? I mean, are those strong numbers, or are they just so-so numbers?
Well, I'll take good questions. I'll take each of those. In terms, I'm not sure what your definition of good is. Is that, I mean, that if you hired 10 other people to do this study and they did it in a scientific manner, they're going to come up with the same thing.
Right, I'm not questioning
So
the
2 to 1.
numbers.
So then the question is, are those good numbers, and how do you make a decision on that? And I'm smiling because I have a really easy job. I get to, there's a saying that says, science seeks questions, policy demands answers. I have an easy job. I come out and I can tell you what, I'm a scientist. I'm a social scientist, as is Corin in our profession. That's the easy job. The hard job is making decisions from that. And so that, I might punt a little bit here, standing in front of you, saying that's not my job. That's, quote, above my pay grade. I can tell you that one of the things that I was surprised, the question that I didn't get, is that I thought somebody might say, well, Mark, the sampling plan that we agreed on that the commission wanted me to do were those people who hunted in both, that experienced both the Monday and the Saturday. And I was surprised nobody said, well, what about the general hunter? Just there are some people you didn't do because they didn't hunt in both of those. But the results would have been probably even stronger skewed towards support than oppose, because the avids were the ones who, the people who were more avid and hunted more were the ones more likely opposed. So had you done more non-avid people, there would have been more in that Saturday camp. Does that make sense? So it would have been, the numbers would have even been more diverged. Now, if you are asking me, is this, should we make a decision on this, I really can't give you any advice on that, because first off, that's not my job and that's not my role. I can say that it's pretty strong. I mean, I've done stuff and everybody watches politics anymore and everything is 51 to 49. Our recent gubernatorial election in Virginia was, 51 to 49. So is this a big difference? Yes. Are there things in terms of the future of hunting? Probably. You have more women coming in and more women supported it. You have more people who have kids who are more supportive of it. On the other hand, some of your strongest supporters have said, well, we want it on that Monday. And those things are really hard to weigh. And that's where your job is so difficult. That as a business person, I'm in private business. I worked for Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I worked for the Park Service, National Wildlife Refuge, and others. So I understand that. But in private business, Delta Airlines or somebody else can make those decisions, and they might go toward one group or another. Your job is to be all things to all people. It's almost impossible to do on a situation like this. So I'm going to punt on that one and say that's a tough decision. But in terms of are these numbers good in terms of appealing to more people and potentially the future of hunting participation, probably. But again, you've got some really avid people who've been there with you and buying those licenses every 5 years, every year in a 5-year period, who are concerned and have concerns over tradition. So it's a really hard job and it's a really hard decision. So I have the easy job and you all have the hard job. But a 2-to-1 margin is pretty substantial.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions on this topic? Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. It's a tough act to follow here, but I'm going to try to do something very similar to what Mark just presented. So this is just a slightly different population, but it's of our hunters in Pennsylvania. So these are people who hunted. This is a survey that was done about a year ago. We have responses from 1,000 hunters, and these are reactivated hunters. So this is when we hear R3, this recruitment, retention, reactivation. So these are people who had hunted in the past, taken a break, hopefully not an ex-hunter, and someone who becomes reactivated is who we looked at specifically. And these are people who hunted again in the fall of 2020 after taking at least 1 year off. So that's just something that kind of begin with here. The average age of these hunters who completed the survey was 41 years old. So I do some analyses. I look at older and younger. I'm not going to present a lot of that today, but those are available, and I might talk about some of the differences. And then we also have about 88% of them are male, 88.7%, which, as you saw from Mark, was very similar. I think my glasses didn't do quite the difference between 88 and 89, but it was roughly the same percentage of men and women who had completed that one. So just go here a little bit. As I mentioned, just the number of years lapse. And so what we see here is 35% of the people who completed the survey had only been lapsed for 1 year. So that means they only took 2019 off. Other people had been lapsed up to 11 years. So we have the average lapsing time was about 4.25 years. Almost exactly half the people were lapsed 1 or 2 years, and the other were 3 or more years, 3 to 11 years. One of the things that we see here is, and that's what these percentages that I'm showing there are, and there is a relationship between the number of years they lapsed and gender. So we have only 8% of the 1 year lapsed after reactivation are female women, and then we have 23% in the 11-year lapsed. And so that is something we have seen a little more of a churn rate, maybe, is how we would describe that, with women. A little bit less of those 5 out of 5 that Mark just mentioned tend to be women. So that's possibly some of the explanation for that there. So next, this question, I just got asked this recently. Corin, why do you always ask this of reactivated hunters? And the reason is consistent participation in hunting is linked to your identity as a hunter. And these are people we know that didn't buy every year. And so I asked them, do you consider yourself a hunter? This is something that we've asked on surveys of the general population, and we ask it on other reactivated hunter surveys, or even lapsed hunters, people that took a year off and hadn't come back. Or do you still consider yourself a hunter? And the good news is here that we have almost 90% of these people say, yep, I'm still a hunter. We do have a difference, a significant difference in between how long they lapsed and their identity, but still, I think it was well over 80 or 85% for all of those groups. If depending on how long they lapsed. Unfortunately, 8% of them still think of themselves as former hunters. Maybe it's how frequently or how hard they might describe their hunting compared to when they hunted in the past. And only 3.5% don't consider themselves hunters, even though they obviously have bought a license at least twice. But maybe they know someone who is what they would really consider a hunter. Maybe they're too casual. We didn't get into any of that, but those are some of the things we've heard before in some focus groups about hunter identity. So, of course, as Mark mentioned, one of the big things, so this fall of 2020, a lot of things changed. And the one thing that changed in all of our lives was COVID-19. So we just took a look here. Did COVID affect your decision to go hunting? And what you might first see here is that 80% said it did not. You know, this didn't change my behavior at all. But I think it's still really important that 20% of these people said, yep, in some way I was able to go hunting more easily because of COVID-19, usually because of their schedules, which, you know, he had just mentioned the amount of time one had to hunt as well. All right, so then a couple other things that changed, and there was a reason why we asked it specifically. In addition to COVID-19 being in our lives in that fall of 2020, we also had the very, very first time ever to hunt on a Sunday. We had those 3 Sundays available, and there was also extension of and some changes to our big game season. So this was considered like a forced choice in survey research. What one single reason would you say out of these 4 the reason you hunted again? And we see again, they had more time. So even though only 20% attributed COVID to their hunting decision, 60% said more time. Now, we might do some focus groups with these people and kind of figure out, you can certainly get more time that wasn't, you know, you could retire, your kids could be out of the house and you don't have to, you know, there's a lot of things that could have changed. And it's possible that maybe the change in their lives they're not attributing to COVID, but maybe it sort of was. The other part is, I think it's also kind of interesting to look here that about a third of these people said that it was due to something related to this Sunday hunting. Is either the opportunity to hunt on Sunday, or we also ask it as like this weekend, this first opening weekend, because that was something we had heard in focus groups before when we asked people about a Saturday hunter. They're like, yeah, but it'd be really good if we could do the whole weekend. And so that's something I'll bring back again. And then, of course, this 6%, which is certainly something, you know, some of these people hunting on these extended big game season, that was their primary reason for reactivating. Okay, so this is what's called a unipolar scale. So this is just how important was Sunday hunting to your decision to reactivate. And we have about a third of them said, nope, it wasn't important at all. But then we see, of course, that means 2/3 of them said it was important. And then we have, among those, it's 1/3 of everyone said it was extremely important. So we still have, you know, that's, as Mark said, you know, that's not my job to say, but that's, you know, 1/3 saying not at all important, 2/3 giving it some importance in their decision, and 1/3 saying it's actually extremely important. This was also something I was really kind of curious to see after we had sent this out. So we had these Sundays. Did you actually go? And we see that only 40% said they did not. 3 Sundays, we have 26% of them hunted just on that deer rifle. We have 14% of them hunted on all 3 Sundays. So we're looking at there, when we're talking a little bit about this Saturday opener here, we're having, you know, about 40% of these people minimum hunted on that Sunday after. And then we have that 11% of people who said they hunted on both, on 2 Sundays. We don't know which 2 Sundays they are. It could be both of the deer seasons, or it may have been, you know, bear one time and deer the other, but approximately 40 to 50% of the people we can get from here, minimum of 40, up to about 51 or 52% of these people could have participated in hunting that Sunday after. Only 1% of them did the bear Sunday only, and then we have about 6% did that archery Sunday only. Okay, so this was one of the big parts, and I don't know if everybody got a copy, but there's the questionnaire. And so there were 16 possible reasons. So we said, okay, why did you come back to hunting in Pennsylvania this year? So we have these top 5, the top 8, these are the highest mean scores. And here we just show some the strongly agree. So these are measured from 1 being strongly disagree to 5 being strongly agree. And we see these top 2. These were things that we had heard people talk about, and we kind of like to put these things in there. The top 2, which are right around 80% agreement, are they wanted to spend more time outdoors, or they wanted to participate in Pennsylvania's hunting traditions. Next, we see some things more of a social reason. Their friends or family invited them to go hunting. We have this Saturday opener to a firearm deer season. And then we have the ability to hunt on Saturday and Sunday of the firearm deer season as well. So we see some of these different things. It ranges from about 80% down to that my child or grandchild asked me to take them hunting. The thing that's different that, as I mentioned before, the average age was 41 years old. So I took a look at people who were 40 and younger and then 41 and older. And the only time the higher mean score was agreement was for older hunters saying their child or grandchild asked them to take them hunting. So at 41, that could easily be their child. If they're, saying, junior hunters 12 years old, that's certainly possible that these are their children. Also very possible at older than 41, it could be grandkids as well. For the others, some of the things that were different between our younger and older hunters, I'm just gonna make sure I get this correct here in my notes. We have the spending more time outdoors, ability to hunt Saturday and Sunday of the firearm deer season, and the archery hunting extended longer into the rut. Those were all three things that had higher mean scores for hunters 40 and younger. Okay, so next, and as I mentioned, that I was going to go into this a little bit more. So most of the rest of the presentation I give is going to be focusing on this Saturday opener. So 53% of them agreed that they decided to hunt again in Pennsylvania because of this Saturday opener for the general firearms deer season. So we have 28% of them strongly agreed. I did a regression analysis, and we obviously don't want to go too much into the statistics, but the things that predicted agreement, all of these have positive relationships to saying these made people more likely to agree. And those are their child or their grandchild asked them to take them hunting. Their friends or their family invited them to go hunting. There are no other options for their weekend time. So this wasn't something that came up on the highest, but this was something in this regression. Spending more time outdoors, we saw that before. The importance of Sunday hunting. Their primary reason for reactivation, which that was that question where it was the Saturday and Sunday, the Sunday big game season, or that extension of the big game seasons, or that more free time to hunt. And then we have that Saturday and Sunday firearm deer opening was all part of that as well. So those people, there's that positive relationship there. So next, I'll talk a little bit about this. And one of the things as I did these analyses, I did lots and lots of crosstabs for this. About a week ago, I was really doing a lot of things and made a lot of tables that didn't quite make it into the final version of this. But the thing I could never sort of get away from was this very strong relationship between Saturday opener and their feelings about the Sunday hunting, especially that weekend. So among the biggest predictors of their agreement with reactivation, again, these are people who took a year off, this is why I came back to hunting. Their ability to hunt on Saturday and Sunday of the general firearms deer season, and then the importance of Sunday hunting and their decision to buy a license again. So those were just some of those two things being linked together. And so very specifically, we have those who said their main reason for reactivating was this opportunity to hunt on Sunday. We have 46% and almost 70% agreed or strongly agreed that that was why they came back to hunting was this Saturday opener. So among those who picked that one reason, and then those who said it was, okay, I came back because the first 2 days were on a general firearms deer season, 82% either agreed or strongly agreed, and we see almost half of them strongly agreed that they came back because of the Saturday opener. So that was, again, not necessarily one that they couldn't pick other things, but when they chose those single reasons for coming back, that's what we look at. And again, we're just taking another look here. There's also a relationship. This is just another crosstab I did. And these are people who they say they didn't hunt at all on Sunday. They have the second lowest percentage of saying that they agreed. And those who hunted during the bear season, those are the lowest. So we see just some of these people who agreed with this Saturday opener are the ones that didn't hunt so much around those other Saturdays, whereas those who hunted on all 3 Saturdays, 77% of them agreed that they started to hunt again because of the Saturday opener. We have about 71% who hunted on that Sunday, that day after that Saturday opener, either agreed or strongly agreed with that. And then I think we have about 2/3 of those who said they hunted on 2 Sundays. Okay, so now we're just going to get a little bit, this is nearing the end here, just taking a little bit of a look here, just to kind of see where this fits in. So We've had now 3 years of Saturday openers. The first time, of course, was in 2019 before COVID. But if we just take a look, which I do a lot at our license sales, that we had since 1982 when we've kind of continuously been decreasing. The last time recently that it went up prior to COVID times was 2012 to 13. Since from 2015 season to the 2017-2018 season, we had an average of about 3.04% loss every year, if we take a look at those numbers. So next we show these same numbers again. This is the December 31st. So we are trying to compare apples to apples, especially with this most recent year, which we haven't had a complete license year. That's why we had the December 31 totals. So we see, again, this 3% license loss every year. If this had continued, if you see that red line there, this year we'd be at about 760,000 licenses sold if we stayed on that same trajectory. Instead, this is what has happened these last 3 years. So we had a little bit of an increase from 2018 to 19. We had the 873,000 last year, which was a lot, and then we have most recently 852,000. So that's still up, I think it's 0.75% from the 2018 number. So if we just have anybody taking a look at some of these numbers there. Okay, so just a quick summary. We have 85% of the respondents, despite lapsing, still identify themselves as hunters. 60% of them participated in some form of Sunday hunting, and 20% that said that COVID affected their decision to go hunting in 2020. And then finally, this Saturday opener, over half of them, 53%, either agreed or strongly agreed that it encouraged them to go hunting again. And this is a very, very strong correlation to their support for Sunday hunting, and really especially when we take a look at how they felt about that opening weekend of general firearms deer season. So that's everything I have here.
Can I throw one question at you?
Of course, yeah, I'll stay here as long as you need me to.
I'm going to preface this with, we've been super heavy on the stats, and this is totally anecdotal.
Okay.
Do you have any hunches or thoughts at all about how small game participation on those 2 Sundays have impacted hunters, if at all? I don't even know if that's something you can take a stab at, but is that...
I haven't heard, and that was just this year that was first available, right? And I haven't heard, because this was done the year before, and we haven't been able to do any qualitative research because of some things we're trying to pay for it with, taking a little longer. And you're asking me if the small game hunting impacted the deer hunting or just the participation on Sundays?
Sunday participation.
You know, I'm trying to think if I've heard anything about that. I feel like someone mentioned, just, again, this was very anecdotal, the ability, and they seemed very pleasantly surprised to hear that they could hunt maybe pheasants one of the weekends or something like that. I feel like there was some sort, or maybe a squirrel, something like that, that there was mentioned in a positive, oh yeah, that's right, I can do that this year. So that's kind of as close as I can get.
Okay.
Yes, but we can ask that on a focus
I've been
group.
hearing too,
Yes.
especially from the Pheasants Forever groups and things like that. I just didn't know if you had done anything or have anything in the works maybe for next year to see where that's going.
Well, we certainly can do that, and we'll probably be asking people about this a lot, and especially as the regulations change. Certainly we know our avid hunters kind of follow those changes a little bit more. So I think that might even be worth asking some different people and seeing, like, maybe that realization. That's sort of the part that I saw, and maybe others have too. That this most recent year and the ability to hunt all different types of things, as well, might be there. I mean, we can just ask it, what their opinion is of just not those individual species that were for that first Sunday year.
Right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Anybody else? Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, executive staff, board of commissioners. I think everybody knows me except maybe Commissioner DeMarco and Commissioner Sankey. Hi, my name is Jeremy Banfield. I'm your elk biologist. Hopefully I'll get a chance to say hello to you here on a break so we don't have to do our this awkward introduction here. I'll get to do it individually after the fact. I've got 3 basic categories of stuff to review with the board here today. Quickly, I'll go over a summary of the 2021 hunting seasons. I do have one proposed change for the 2022 seasons. It's very minor, just related to a shift in the season date. And then I'll quickly go over some research updates. So I've got 10 minutes. I'm probably going to be done in about 8. Applications for 2021. This would be applications. Okay, so this is not applicants. We had just under 100,000 applications. You can see in 2019, we added the archery and the late seasons as well. That really boosted the applications because it allowed a single individual to apply for 3 different seasons versus 1. And so that's what really skyrocketed it there. But it has been going up every year, and that's good. How that actually translates into applicants is about 53,000 and change was this past year. So again, those 53,751 individuals each applied. Some applied for 1 season, some applied for 2 seasons, some applied for all 3 seasons, and that's what gives you that 99,000 and change. That is the highest that it's been since we started hunting elk since 2001, and I am proud of that. I think that's a good thing. Those applicants applied for 187 tags this past year, 56 bulls, 131 cows. Again, that was split across 3 seasons, an early archery season, a general season, and then a late season. Quick results from those. So our archery season was the first 2 weeks of September, or the latter 2 weeks of September, excuse me. And we had 93% success on bulls, 67% success on cows. General season is always the first full week of November, 94% success on bulls there, 70% success on cows, and then our late season is the first full week of January, 100% success on bulls, 69% success on cows, overall 95% on bulls, and about 70% on cows. So there is, this probably goes without saying, but there's always, the individuals that are unsuccessful are a little grouchy and unsatisfied with that. I still think it's pretty tough to argue with a 70% success rate overall on the antlerless, and you certainly can't argue with a 95% success rate on the bulls. The one season change that we're asking for in 2022 is just a slight shift in the starting date for the archery season. So going back through the years, that season started in 2019. It's always been kind of the latter 2 weeks of September. Right around the middle of September, we open it, and then we close it 2 weeks later. The design there was to overlap the rut, right? So the peak of the elk rut is right around the 3rd part of September, and we were trying to allow those hunters to hunt elk during the rut. Shifting this week back doesn't change anything. What it does do is give those hunters an additional week to prepare. So one of the issues that we're running into is the drawing, the expo. The drawing occurs at the Elk Expo, which is always the middle of August, and it's been on average about 3 weeks, so 22 days between when the names are drawn, when somebody finds out that they're going to be hunting, and then when they're actually going to be hunting those elk. And so we're just trying to give them a little bit extra time. Is there a huge difference between 3 weeks and 4 weeks? No, but it's still additional time, and it's a relatively simple change that's not going to affect a whole lot. It's still going to overlap the rut, so we're just asking for those changes in 2022. Moving quickly into research updates. Again, most of you know this, but just to do a quick review, 2020 we started a calf survival project. That's where we're going out. We're putting out VITs and then collars as well on adult cows. We're ultrasounding the animals first to confirm pregnancy. There we go. So cows are ultrasounded at capture. We confirm whether they are pregnant or not. The VIT goes in. That tells us when the animal actually calves. It communicates with the collar. And then we go out, we find the calf on the ground, collar that individual, and we can get calf survival from that. A couple results or early results from the 2020 capture year is this is the distribution of when the animals are being born. And the purpose behind this study is to try and get at differences in survival between that first pulse that you see that centers kind of right around June 10th. That's expected, right? That's when the animals should be born. That long lag and kind of the tail of that distribution after July 1 is late-born animals. And so the purpose of the study is really to determine, is there a difference in survival based on animals that are born when they should be versus the ones that are late. This has one more year, so literally right now we are putting out another 50 VIT collar combos on cows. Those calves will come this coming spring, and then results will be expected the following year in fall of 2023. And this is in collaboration with Penn State. The project's led by Dr. David Walter, and he is supervising the graduate student Avery Karundi. Second research project that kind of piggybacks off of that first one is habitat selection. So obviously I just got done saying we're going to be putting out 150 collars over 3 years. Those collars are GPS collars, so in addition to the pregnancy and the calf survival, we also have a graduate student that's going out there visiting a lot of those actual locations on the ground and then taking a suite of different vegetation characteristics to really get at elk habitat selection at the micro level. You know, what kind of stem densities are there on the ground? What kind of vegetative cover are they seeing right at their nose, basically? And then that study is going to be finishing up around the same time, so fall of 2023 as well. That one is with IUP, supervised by Dr. Jeff Larkin, and the graduate student there is Mallory Virch. Last thing that I will talk about is our aerial survey is going on right now. So this is footage from last year, but the 2022 aerial survey is underway. The plane is here. They're based in out-of-state college. They are flying as weather permits. And they'll cover about 95% of the occupied elk range. So those are the flight transects from last year. They're 500 meters apart, and anywhere that you see those dense circles are actual observations of elk. And that's going on this year. That ultimately leads us into our population estimate. Last year was 1,480. Confidence intervals range from about 1,300 to about 1,800. And that information ultimately gets transferred into our tag allocation. So the population is broken into hunt zone. We combine that with elk-human conflicts, and that goes into the tag allocation. So we'll finish up that survey, and then you'll be getting our recommended tag allocations for 2022 at the April meeting. And that is everything I had for you. Any questions on any of that? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you looking out for the archery hunters, because as a commissioner, I've been hearing the same, that those that draw the, quite honestly, tag of a lifetime to hunt an elk in Pennsylvania would like more time to prepare for that hunt. So
Yeah.
appreciate you looking out for that as well.
Absolutely. I think we owe them that time, so yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Andrea Corman. I am the chronic wasting disease biologist with the agency, and I'm going to give you just a brief update on where we are with the current status of CWD activities. So far this season, CWD sampling has continued at a high level. We have had about 10,000 samples collected so far. A few hundred of those are still pending analysis, but we do have around 9,500 that have come back not detected, along with 201 that have come back as positive. And as we've seen in the past, the vast majority of those are in our established area, with a few exceptions. For comparison, at this time last year, we had around 11,000 samples. We do continue collecting roadkill and clinical suspects through the fiscal year, so our overall total last season was around 12,700. So this number will still increase at least a little bit somewhat. As far as elk, we have collected around 180 samples so far. 138 have been not detected, with 40 still pending analysis. Luckily, so far, we have not had a positive CWD detection in our elk. And for comparison, last year, we had around 150 samples at this time last season. Now for our average turnaround time, this is for our head bin samples. So in other words, those are samples voluntarily submitted by hunters into Game Commission provided head collection bins. Our turnaround time for those samples has decreased by 5 days. So last season, our average turnaround time was 9 days, and this season, we are down to 4 days. And that is based on from the time the sample was submitted to the lab to the time those results are entered into the database. So what does that does not account for is the time the hunter submits the head into the head bin to the time it is picked up from the Game Commission, processed, and then shipped to the lab. So that could add a few days to that turnaround time. But our maximum turnaround time was 14 days, and then our minimum was actually 0 days. Now for our established area, we are seeing a continued increase in sample prevalence. So based on our response plan, our objective in this area is to maintain sample prevalence at or below 5%. For reference, in the 2019 season, we were around 7.5%, and this is for strictly hunter-harvested adult deer is what we base this number off of. Last season, we were up to 14%, and currently for this season, we are around 17%. We also have 10 CWD DMAP units. So these are areas where we want to really focus our surveillance efforts. In our response plan, we describe this as having a target sample size of 250 to 300 samples per unit. That would give us 95% confidence of detecting the disease if it's at a 1% prevalence in that population. So far, in 3 of these units, we have met that target sample size. And on 2 of our newer units, we are pretty close to meeting that sample size. And like I mentioned before, we do continue to collect roadkill and clinical suspects throughout the year, so this number could still change a little bit until the end of the fiscal year. And even if we don't meet that target sample size, these numbers are still informative for us for management. And one other thing I wanted to just mention is that we launched a new CWD story map in November. So our current main CWD page has not very user-friendly format and did not have all of the information all in one place that was easily accessible. And so we worked with our GIS folks to create a different web page that should hopefully be easier for the public. We'll give it a second here to hopefully load. Maybe. But this particular website is actually based on the top of our main CWD page. It does have videos embedded on the page. It has easy access to all of our hunter resources such as headbin locations, high-risk parts dumpsters, cooperating processors. There is also a video on showing you kind of a walkthrough of how to find your results if you submitted a head for CWD testing. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be loading, but if you have a chance to visit that page, I strongly encourage you to do so. I think it has really provided a lot of useful information in an easy-to-use format for hunters that I think will be a really big improvement. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thanks, Andrea.
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I do appreciate the revamping of the website as well, because hunters out there are hungry for information, and having it at their fingertips is very valuable. The information that's on the head bins is very valuable. The number of different avenues that your departments put information out there for hunters, I think, is to me commended. So thank you very much for your efforts there.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So, commissioners, executive director, and deputy executive directors, my name is Emily Carollo. For everyone that's new, I am your black bear biologist or program specialist. So, today I will be going over our black bear harvest and population reports, if I can get this up. The mouse isn't showing up on here. Oh, am I just doing it through here? My presentation isn't. Dave, can you help me real quick? How do I have it just right here on the desktop, but it's not.
Just X these out.
I can't see the.
Oh, okay. Come on. Lori's coming to save the day.
You're not chronic wasting disease, right? Oh, that is
No.
weird.
Yeah, it's like.
Okay, so it's not me.
You can probably
Can we
control.
guess?
Control Alt V.
I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Deanna, it's not showing the mouse on this screen.
Oh, but how do you
No,
find
it's
out?
only up there. Like, can I guess? Black bear. No, no.
Can you open the file? Can you go down to so you can hit the file and see if we
Hit
can't
here?
pull up? Yeah, and see if you can open up the desktop. But it doesn't even. Oh, that's weird. So you can't even.
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, because you can't see what the heck you're clicking on.
All right, can we restart this? Maybe?
Thanks, Andrea.
Restart? Is that what I want to do, you think? I'm trying to.
What if you just go to PowerPoints? Will it show PowerPoints? Like at the top?
At the top?
Well, when you went in there, like. Good thing would be working with desktop. Go to file. Or is it document? I'm good at workaround. Should click on desktop.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Is to try and pull it up. Is to try, but the thing is, you can't see what it's clicking on here. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's not that there is anything to even click on.
It's the only thing we have. Lori, yeah, are you trying the touchpad or?
Yes.
We don't have a mouse. We only have a touchpad.
Just entertain us with stories about black bears.
Exactly. There's plenty of